The last concept we can talk about under unemployment is something known as the natural rate of unemployment. And this is going to be exactly where we converge to in the long run in terms of our unemployment rate. We can sort of see that of this as our happy little place in terms of the economy. We don't always have to be operating at the natural rate of unemployment. Sometimes we can be above this point, we can be sometimes be below this point, but overall, in the long run, this is exactly where the economy is going to be converging to. And it tells us exactly about the health of the economy at any given moment in time. And as we said before, frictional and structural unemployment is always going to exist. Cyclical unemployment is the focus of most public policy. So if we actually want to go ahead and have some type of impact in lowering the unemployment rate, it's going to be on the cyclical unemployment side. So when the government passes some type of stimulus, it's going to be focusing in on the cyclical unemployment. The natural rate of unemployment is basically where our cyclical unemployment is equal to zero. So it's just a sum of frictional and structural unemployment. So just go ahead and make that down for an important note. So the natural rate of unemployment, unemployment is exactly going to be just a sum of frictional and structural unemployment. So frictional plus structural, because both of these unemployments are always going to exist. So exactly where cyclical unemployment equals to zero. Cyclical unemployment equals to zero. And with this, there are a few differing names for the natural rate of unemployment. The most common one that we're going to be using is something known as full employment. So full employment is exactly telling us what is our potential GDP going to be if we're operating at our natural rate of unemployment. If our cyclical unemployment is equal to zero, essentially we're operating at a point in the business cycle where everything is running smoothly at capacity. We know exactly how much GDP the economy should be producing at this point. So the natural rate of unemployment is exactly equal to full employment. It's exactly where the economy is going to be converging to in the long run. So what also happens at the natural rate of unemployment? Another name that we can give to this is something known as the NIRU, the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. Very long-winded. We typically won't use this too often. We'll stick with full employment. But at this natural rate of unemployment, inflationary pressures are at the minimum. Actual inflation is equal to expectations, price and wage decisions are consistent, and as we noted, cyclical unemployment is equal to zero. So essentially, everything within the economy is moving very, very smoothly, and we are good to go. We're at our happy little place. In terms of the United States, what do you think is the natural rate of unemployment number? For the United States, our natural rate of unemployment is typically close to 5 to 6%. So here, this red line right here is denoting what our natural rate of unemployment is over the past few years. So since 1968 and so on. So with all of this, this is exactly where the economy is going to be converging to in the long run in terms of unemployment. However, we don't always have to be operating at this line. Sometimes the economy can be above this line, sometimes the economy can be below this line. And that's where the blue line, the actual unemployment rate, takes place. And what do we notice about the actual unemployment rate? So remember, anytime we see these shaded bars right here, that's where we have some type of recession. So we do notice that unemployment tends to peak up anytime we are in a recession. But what do we notice when the recession is over? We notice that, hey, unemployment tends to go down very, very quickly, or in a decent amount of time, back to the natural rate of unemployment. So here, it goes back to the red line fairly quickly. Here, 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 and here as well. It all converges back to the natural rate of unemployment. So whenever we see this blue line, the actual unemployment rate above the natural rate of unemployment, we typically say that, hey, these are pretty bad recessions. The economy is not really doing that great, because we notice that the unemployment rate is bigger than what we should be in equilibrium. If we see the blue line, the unemployment rate below the natural rate of unemployment, we typically say that the economy is doing really, really well. We're overheating probably just a little bit. And that's exactly what we saw right here in 2016 all the way till 2020. If we wanted to extend that out a little bit, it'd be a little bit interesting to see what happens with this when we have the coronavirus pandemic. But as we can see right here, anytime the actual unemployment rate is below the natural rate of unemployment, we notice that economy is doing great. We're having great economic times, and that's where we were in 2016 all the way to the early part of 2020. So like we said, we're going to come back to this sort of point of the natural rate of unemployment or full employment when we talk about macroeconomic equilibrium, tying everything together. But that's going to be a few chapters down the line. So with all of this, we've tackled the two twin evils within the economy. We tackled inflation and unemployment within this particular chapter. With inflation, we talked about exactly the three different price indices with the CPI, the PPI, and the GDP deflator, as well as the formulas that go along with each of them. And then when we turned our attention to the unemployment rate, we took a look at, it's a very, very easy equation and formula to go ahead and take a look at. It's just a little bit difficult to think about who's in the labor force, who's not in the labor force, and who's employed and unemployed. And then we talked a little bit more about this few of the intrinsic things that are within the unemployment rate. As always, great job with all of these chapters. A little bit of a longer chapter for us, but these are two of the most important macroeconomic indicators that we can talk about, and now you are a little bit more knowledgeable about the things that you're going to hear on the news stories, on the television, radio, and things that you read on the internet. I'll see you guys with our final big macroeconomic indicator in the next chapter where we talk about economic growth.